All right, it's time for another solo project. And yeah, whenever a solo artist, or I guess a member of a well-renowned band, well-renowned? Yeah, well-known, when they go off on their own, it's really interesting to see how their musical styles it differs from everybody else in the band, and also the context that they bring to it, as just kind of like analyzing the one facet of it. So let's do that here.
Every time I fail to see, oh, that's you and I.
Everything to Everyone by Bjørn Riis. So Bjørn is the lead singer, songwriter, guitarist for Airbag. Love a lot of Airbag's work. Airbag is a Norwegian kind of contemporary prog outfit. I really love them with All Rights Removed back in 2011. Their Disconnected album from 2016 was mwah. Unfortunately, I couldn't say the same for some of their other albums. Greatest Show on Earth is fine, and A Day at the Beach just left me unfortunately cold, the one that was released in 2020. But Bjørn has actually put out a number of solo records, starting with Lullabies in a Car Crash in 2014, following that up in 2017 with Forever Comes to an End, and A Storm is Coming in 2019. Yeah, now we come to Everything to Everyone. This is actually the first iteration of his solo work that I've listened to. I haven't heard A Storm's Coming, Forever Comes to an End, and Lullabies in a Car Crash. I probably should, because what I was hearing from Everything to Everyone, I thoroughly enjoyed. The overall flavor that I'm getting from this album is kind of the handover between the late 90s and early 2000s of Porcupine Tree and Steven Wilson. I'm definitely getting flavors of Stupid Dream, of Lightbulb Sun, and some of Steven Wilson's solo projects, specifically with Insurgents. A little bit from Grace to Drowning, but that's kind of the overall flavor that we're getting here. Mixed within that, I felt like there's a lot of Floydian aspects on here, like David Gilmour styles of guitar works. What I do appreciate and love about Bjørn's work here is the blending of using the guitar as a craft for creating atmosphere, while also having that overlaid for some really beautiful guitar stretches in terms of solos on there. And kind of using the instrument in both sense really does elevate this into something really interesting. I just wish that Bjørn would kind of keep some of his influences off of his sleeve so much. The first track of Run really does feel like a Steven Wilson track. Right from the opening chords for how the guitar sounds, how the guitar is being played, right into the movements of the guitars. This is clearly Insurgents and Grace for Drowning, just in summary. But even with these influences, he is able to kind of distance himself a little bit from that. The third track of The Siren is a hauntingly beautiful track, and Bjørn's singing styles on here does kind of elevate this into this haunting, very almost whimsical aspect of it. It's very soft. It's not very piercing at all. And it's really just this little piano ballad as well, even though it's 7.5 minutes. But it provides just a really great and somber atmosphere within this more subtle, subdued track. And the same can be said about the fifth track of Descending, where it's very whimsical, it's very somber, but there's always this overlay of shadows and always this overlay of darkness on there. And this is kind of why I'm saying it's so akin to a Steven Wilson. But on this one, I'm feeling a little bit more of the Storm Corrosion aspect of it, the side project that he did with Michael Eckefelt. Even though this song does build itself into a pretty tasty little crescendo, I do feel as though it does kind of peter out, and it does kind of cap itself at the knees by not allowing itself to really blossom into some really heavy hitting tracks. It's just kind of builds itself up to just a bleh. And it is interesting, a lot of these longer stretches of music, Lay Me Down, I kept wondering, what was the point? I know I'm so bad at this, I'm always craving for some kind of resolution to the music. I'm always craving for some way to shape the music into something really special and really interesting. And I just felt with Lay Me Down, you had this gradual build to a really nice crescendo around the midpoint. And then the latter half of this track, it just kind of peters out into nothing really all that exciting. It does provide a really good platform for Bjørn to do his Gilmour-esque guitar works, but without it leading to anything in the back half of the track, it just kind of falls a little bit flat. And unfortunately, the same can be said about the other longer track of Every Second, Every Hour. And again, I love the halfway mark build up, where it builds itself up to about the 4 or 5 minute mark. And then we have from about the 4.5 minute mark to probably about the 7 minute mark, this really tasty, really tangible, and really gnarly, like dark guitar works, this really like precise kind of guitar aspects on there. The guitar licks are meaty and juicy. But once we get past that and it starts to play itself out, it really is just a platform for Bjørn to just kind of noodle away. And in some cases, this is really nice and really like digestible. But on an album that is reaching over the 50-minute mark, I feel like it just is there to pad the music, and I don't know, it detracts a little bit from the overall playing styles. Like if they had this and maybe trimmed off about 20 minutes worth of music, like maybe taken off 2 of the smaller tracks, these tracks would feel a little bit more special. But because they're kind of like sandwiched between these smaller, more concrete, more juicy tracks, it does kind of take a little bit of the punch away from it. Now, I do have to mention about the best track off of this album, my favorite track off of this album, one of the best tracks that Bjørn has done. The last track, the title track of Everything to Everyone. This one did blow me away. Like, I'm so glad that Bjørn decided to end on a high note. It's taking me back to, I hate to touch upon Porcupine Tree again, but it's reminding me of Dark Matter and Ascension and What Now? Although I think Ascension is Steven Wilson, but besides the point. It just reminds me of a lot of those very concrete, very like staple end tracks that really build to a beautiful, beautiful crescendo. Like the first half of the track really is the build-ups, and that's where I feel like Lay Me Down and Every Second, Every Hour really missed the mark by putting the first half of the song as being the big crescendo and the second half being the play out. This one provides the first half of the track being that build up, being that kind of run to and climb up the mountain for the second half of the track to really blossom into this beautiful, tangible crescendo. And man, I'm loving those meaty guitar licks that's found on here. It's so like concrete and so realized. And the play out at the end is quite serviceable. I think that he could have done something a little bit more interesting at the end of this track to kind of finalize the album, or like played out the big crescendo rather than make it go back into the original theme of the track. But that's just my own personal gripe on that one. So yeah, in the end, Everything to Everyone is an interesting album. It's one that I enjoyed myself while I was in it, but there wasn't too much bringing me back into the album afterwards. If you're looking for some like space rock, some more modern or contemporary prog, then give this one a listen. If you're a fan of Airbag and you're a fan of Bjørn's work, then absolutely give this one a listen. You probably already have. But yeah, for me, it was just kind of, it left me wanting more. It's a lot better than Airbag's last effort of A Day at the Beach, but it's still kind of far and away from their better works like Disconnected and All Rights Removed. So in the end, I will say that Everything to Everyone by Bjørn Riis, it's one that I would totally stream. There's enough interesting aspects off of this album to definitely warrant a listen. Give it a listen, definitely check it out. But this is one that I wouldn't necessarily recommend rushing out to listen to. If you're finding yourself in a really nice groove, then, take your time, don't rush. But it's still one that if you get the chance and you like more of this melodic, darker, if you like Steven Wilson's work and Ever Since To The Bone has left you dry, definitely give this one a listen. But yeah, that's kind of what I've got for Everything to Everyone by Bjørn Riis. What did you guys think about this album? Did you love it? Did you hate it? How does it stack up with Airborne or Bjørn's other work? Let me know all about that by commenting down below. And I think that's all I got for today. That's all I got. So thank you all so much for watching. As always, you guys are definitely the best. And until next time, notes out.